on Auschwitz. The history of Auschwitz is exceptionally complex. It combined two functions, a concentration camp and extermination center. Nazi Germany persecuted various groups of people there, and the camp complex was continually expanded and transformed. In the podcast on Auschwitz, we discuss the details of the history of the camp, as well as our contemporary memory of this important and special place. Prisoners of Auschwitz were able to send different types of illegal messages, within the camp, but also outside the barbed wire fences. Some were short letters addressed to family members. Some were messages and reports for underground resistance organizations. Dr. Wojciech Płosa, the head of the museum archives, discusses this unique collection of documents. In one of the previous episodes of the podcast, we discussed the official correspondence prisoners were allowed to have with their families within a very strict framework. Now I would like to address the illegal correspondence, secret messages. What were the secret messages? What kind of information could they possibly contain? Who could transmit them? And who were the intended recipients?
Myślę, że akurat dokumenty, które my w naszym archiwum określamy mianem gry psów, można podzielić na kilka.
In my opinion, the documents within our archive that we refer to as secret messages can be divided into several categories. Obviously, we are talking about correspondence that was transmitted from the camp through diverse channels, employing various methods and with the assistance of numerous individuals, and which, by its very definition, was intended to remain secret and not to fall into the hands of the camp authorities, the SS, or any Gestapo agents or informers. So it is undoubtedly a phenomena that we possess several hundred examples of secret messages in our collections, given the expectation that they should actually be destroyed. Meanwhile, they have survived and are a very significant source of information on the camp's history. I believe the greatest portion of this collection of secret messages are those sent by the resistance movement. This is the first substantial group of correspondence. The second group is the illegal correspondence between the prisoners who worked outside the camp and the civilians living near the camp who helped the prisoners. The prisoners could count on receiving help in the form of food, medicine, or clothing. They covertly reached out to the same individuals for assistance using secret messages. Other secret messages include information prisoners sent before their deportation to the camp. It is a known fact that a number of prisoners, particularly those detained by the Gestapo, were held in various prisons before being transferred to Auschwitz, and they occasionally had the opportunity to send secret messages to their families from the detention centers. Secret messages sent illegally from prisons often ended up in our archives during the transfer of official correspondence of prisoners and other donated documents. One exceptional group includes rare documents, such as discarded slips of paper containing information from prisoners, either after their arrest and transfer to prisons or during their transportation to the Auschwitz camp. Some of these documents accidentally came into the possession of diverse bystanders, pedestrians on the street, or railway workers at various train stations. These individuals came across these messages and subsequently transmitted them to the prisoners' relatives if they had addresses. A less abundant collection of these secret messages can also be found. These are secret messages sent by prisoners held in the camp as police prisoners, predominantly in Block 11 in Auschwitz I, anxiously awaiting their uncertain fate. In most cases, they were either on the verge of facing trials that would determine their fate, or, in a few instances, they could expect to be released. Lastly, there is a unique category of exceptionally important secret messages. These are secret messages written by prisoners that were exchanged within the camp. It is a truly unique collection of documents, which is also incredibly fascinating, as it demonstrates the ability to communicate within the camp using this method.
Że również i wewnątrz obozu można się było w ten sposób komunikować.
Can you think of any examples of such secret messages inside the camp?
Tak, oczywiście. Nawet ostatnio trzymaliśmy takie...
Naturally. Just recently we received 2 secret messages, in addition to the official correspondence from Waldemar Nowakowski to Marianna Zielińska. Waldemar Nowakowski worked in the Zentralbauleitung, the main building office, and had access to writing materials, paper and pencils. Marianna Zielińska, on the other hand, was in the women's camp in Birkenau, and shortly before Waldemar Nowakowski was deported from Auschwitz to Buchenwald in late October 1944, he wrote 2 letters on official forms from the Zentralbauleitung regarding orders for construction materials to Marianna Zielińska, whom he had deep feelings for. By the way, they both survived the camps. They happily returned to Poland after the war and got married. One could even say it is somewhat like a romantic tale. In these secret messages, Waldemar Nowakowski, fully aware that he might be transferred from Auschwitz, directly informs his beloved that they will have to separate and will not be able to meet for some time. He even tries to meet her there or catch a glimpse of her, but fails. The only way he can communicate with her is through these secret messages. Another quite similar case is the history of Mr. and Mrs. Marosiani. Juliusz and Henryka Marosiani were married and lived in Stawnica. They worked in the spa town, and their house was where those attempting to reach Hungary via the Tatra mountains with the help of Tatra couriers found shelter. Henryka, Juliusz Marosiani, and their daughter Wanda were arrested for this activity and incarcerated in Auschwitz. On 6th of March 1943, Henryka perished in the hospital in Birkenau. Her daughter, Wanda, was unaware of this as she was working in the camp offices at the Auschwitz I May camp at the time. She later received a secret message from her father, which is also in our collection, informing her of this tragic news. Therefore, it is evident that a wide range of information was conveyed in these secret messages. However, it is also apparent that they were delivered through various means. When discussing the camp area, it was common that designated hiding spots were created or fellow prisoners helped to transmit those secret messages. Examples include prisoners employed in various types of work units, especially those who, given the nature of their work, could navigate through the camp or the entire camp complex. Here, I am referring especially to workers such as electricians and carpenters. They carried a wide array of tools essential for completing their commissioned work and sometimes requiring immediate attention in an emergency. Typically, these tool bags contained hidden compartments such as double bottoms, hollowed-out hammer handles, or hollowed-out screwdriver handles where the secret messages were concealed. As we can imagine, these were usually small pieces of paper that could easily be hidden in various places, even when folded multiple times. However, dispatching secret messages beyond the camp's periphery was accomplished either through the assistance of prisoners serving in work units operating outside the camp or through the cooperation of workers employed by various companies within the camp. This aspect is especially noteworthy in relation to the activities of the camp resistance movement. Naturally, these were highly trusted individuals, those whom the resistance prisoners knew well and to whom they could entrust this task. Of course, they had to be extremely careful. It wasn't simply a matter of prisoners entering and leaving the camp. Naturally, they had to exercise great caution. The SS men also searched the workers quite thoroughly. Indeed, all sorts of measures and ideas were employed to transmit these secret messages in a composed and relatively safe manner. Some methods involved using hollowed-out pencils or fountain pens with hidden compartments to conceal secret messages, or hollowed-out candies that were empty inside, among others. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary object, but inside it contained secret messages. It is worth noting that our collection includes a large number of secret messages related to the camp resistance movement's activities. Specifically, there is a significant collection of secret messages sent by the left-wing resistance movement led by Józef Cyrankiewicz or Stanisław Kłodziński in the camp. They had their liaison officers in the camp who transmitted secret messages through various channels. The messages would later reach Teresa Lasocka, who was in charge of clandestine assistance to concentration camp prisoners in Krakow. She later transferred these secret messages to our archives, mainly thanks to the efforts of Stanisław Kłodziński. It is particularly interesting that such perilous documents were stored at the resistance movement's headquarters, which had a close association with the activities of Auschwitz. The concept in general is quite remarkable because when we engage with various kinds of films or novels, particularly spy novels, we tend to assume that all clandestine information is promptly destroyed after reading it. There, none of these secret messages were destroyed, but were carefully preserved and survived into the post-war era. The gravity of the situation is further heightened by the potential risks associated with any slip-up or German intervention, whether it be from the Gestapo or the SS. The potential outcome and its conclusions are well known. Were these resistance secret messages safeguarded in a specialized manner and encoded using a cipher that required a specific key for decryption? They were. Indeed, some of them are written in an encrypted way, some in open text. However, the key to the cipher employed was the piece by Jan Kochanowski, which begins with the words, "who gives himself into the care of his Lord." It is Jan Kochanowski's translation of the text of the 97th Psalm from the Bible, and these initial words were the basis for the key in which letters were converted into numbers. Thus, the letter K corresponded to the numeral 1, and T to 2, and so on. In some instances involving Polish characters, such as "si" or "ż" with a dot, they were written directly without alternation. So it could take a little bit of guesswork to figure out, but all in all, it was indeed an effective method to encrypt the content. I might also add that the diligence exhibited in concealing or transmitting this information through secret messages was an indicative factor of the entire operation. It was significant to remember that these secret messages had to be delivered to trusted individuals. For example, it was known that even if they had been moved out of the camp successfully, they couldn't be sent further by traditional posts because the Gestapo controlled regular mail. If the Gestapo officers didn't intercept them, then some agents working in the post offices could have. Undoubtedly, postal workers played a significant role in uncovering various forms of denunciation, which were destroyed to prevent losses. Nevertheless, the pivotal issue is whether these covered messages reached their designated recipients. This endeavor required a remarkable dedication from individuals of goodwill, entailing substantial risks. It is imperative to acknowledge and underscore the extraordinary courage exhibited by these individuals. Moreover, I suspect that these are individuals with great composure, as any inspection or search would present a formidable predicament for a bearer of such a clandestine message.
Takiego grypsu na pewno byłby wtedy w bardzo trudnej sytuacji.
What would be the potential consequences, if a mistake occurred and a secret message was uncovered within the camp?
Na terenie obozu to oczywiście groziła natychmiastowa interwencja obozowego Gestapo, czyli Wydziału Politycznego.
In the camp, this immediately posed a threat of intervention by the camp's Gestapo or political department. To the camp Gestapo officers, it would be clear evidence of a resistant movement operating in the camp. This implied the need to gather all available information from the prisoner or courier of the secret message about its source and their affiliations with the resistant movement, which necessitated a brutal investigation, countless interrogations, imprisonment in Block 11, torture, and often fatal consequences. As the years passed, especially around 1944, discipline in the camp began to relax somewhat, and the punishment was akin to a relocation from Auschwitz to another camp. Nevertheless, the risk was immense as the Gestapo was relentless in its pursuit to uncover any connections, paying particular attention to communication routes, the identity of the liaison, the couriers of secret messages, and the various means and hiding places employed for their successful transfer. It is well known that one of the priorities of the camp Gestapo was to combat resistance among the prisoners and within the camp premises. Speaking about the volume of clandestine messages, can one claim that sending secret messages was common, both within and beyond the confines of the camp?
Nie sądzę, żeby można było postawić taką tezę, aczkolwiek oczywiście musimy pamiętać o tym, że
No, I don't believe we can assert such a claim. Nonetheless, it's essential to acknowledge that there was an inherent need for social interaction in situations where individuals are isolated, whether due to imprisonment, seclusion, or detainment. Indeed, we probably do not attach much importance to it nowadays, since everyone has a mobile phone or email, making sending messages natural, normal, and commonplace. Unless, of course, there is a global breakdown. However, these documents underscore the paramount significance of communication. While equally significant, in this instance I am not alluding to secret messages individuals sent to their loved ones, be it in prisons, Block 11, or a formidable penitentiary like Mysłowice when departing this life. For example, there were situations in which some individuals were already aware that the verdict had been passed, their fate sealed, and no other escape was possible. So they felt compelled to provide one final indication of their presence and bid farewell to their loved ones. Generally speaking, though, sending a secret message is not easy or common. Why? Above all, it was essential to have access to the precise basics required to write a secret message. Simply put, you have to have a piece of paper, a pencil, a pen, or a crayon, in any case, some material or writing instrument. Obviously, you also had to know the ways and the right people to send these secret messages out. The number is undoubtedly impressive, but it only offers a glimpse of the reality. The existence of the resistance movement was widely acknowledged, and the prisoners' resistance movement inside the camp was meticulously structured. Therefore, it was crucial to prioritize the dissemination of information, particularly to the resistance activists in the immediate vicinity of the camp. This, of course, involved the preparation of appropriate communication channels and their use. However, it is widely assumed that most prisoners neither had the means nor likely entertained the notion of carrying out such an act. Nevertheless, this necessitated occupying a specific and comparatively privileged position in the camp's hierarchy. This implies that you could take a risk if you were employed in a camp office, warehouse, or any other workplace with access to stationary resources. We should also bear in mind that if there were more secret messages, it is likely that a large number of them were simply destroyed to cover up any traces of their activities and to avoid punishment or reprisals from the Germans. However, looking at the messages that have survived to this day, so many years after the war, and those handed over to the museum, we can say that these secret messages are still kept in families as a kind of treasure, information, message.
To czasami jest właśnie jedyny ślad, albo nawet ostatni ślad jakiegoś kontaktu.
I believe so, and it is sometimes the only trace or even the last trace of contact between the prisoner and their family. So yes, I believe that for people who have secret messages in their personal archives or collections, along with photographs or other memorabilia, these messages are undeniably valuable and important mementos. It is very easy to comprehend if one considers all the circumstances we have discussed so far. The prisoner took the risk and made an effort to communicate by sending a secret message to their family.
Żeby dać o sobie znać właśnie na przykład w taki sposób wysyłając gryps do rodziny.
All episodes of the On Auschwitz podcast are available at auschwitz.org/podcasts. We kindly ask you to support our mission and share our podcast in social media.